It's the Morning Brew with Elle Dawson and Gillian Robertson. Brought to you by Fight Bananas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. It's been much longer since these last fights, but we got to recap them for you. And we got a lot to talk about too from PFL last week, UFC Shanghai. There's all sorts. Yours truly, Elle Dawson. To my left/right, Gillian the Savage Robertson. How are you doing, G?
I'm doing good. I'm like, we had the Contender Series too this week. I'm like, the Contender, PFL, UFC Shanghai at perfect time for me. I'm like, woke up literally like right as the main card started. So I'm like, that was nice. Then you just kind of get to watch the fights through the day. You know, you don't got to wait all day till 10 p.m. So I was happy with that.
I don't mind it at all. I don't mind an early night. I think we should touch on Contender Series just very briefly. And then there's way too much to talk about between PFL and UFC Shanghai. But I was hopeful on week one that we weren't going to sign everybody and their mother. That ship has sailed for me. How about you?
Yes, I feel like a lot of these guys were more deserving still. Like there was a lot of good fights on the card. It wasn't like he was just signing, I don't know. Sometime like last year, there was some people that got signed where I was like, how did this even happen? Where I'm like, these weren't the worst fights. So I can understand why he signed. He was getting a little signing happy on this one.
I'll give you that. I guess I'm when comparing seasons like 1 and 2 Contender Series to what we see now, it like even if every fight was a banger, still only 1 or 2 guys got a contract. Mm-hmm. And I just think we need to go back to that. We do not have enough events unless they are planning to do something crazy with Paramount Plus that they have not told us about. We just don't have enough events to support this an ever increasing roster, in my opinion. But
no, I agree. But as we were talking a little bit off air, it seems like they're a little bit more willing to make cuts nowadays too. So I'm like, with what we saw at UFC Shanghai, we're expecting probably a couple off of that one. But yeah, they just seem to be, I don't know, more willing to sign, but also more willing to release.
Very true, very true. And we definitely, yes, we need to address that with this card because I think we have several releases coming our way, especially considering the very quick release of Brian Battle. I understand there were several factors leading into that. Not the first time he's missed weight, but like he's a popular fighter, an Ultimate Fighter winner on a decent win streak with a good UFC record. And they released him pretty much immediately after this last weight miss. I did also hear, I didn't see anything. This was just a post I saw that he like posted himself like partying pretty hard right after missing weight, which maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I didn't see that post. If you guys saw that post, let me know if that's a true thing or just a rumor on the interwebs. But they released him awful quick, and I definitely am wondering what we're going to see with possibly Brian Ortega and some other names following this card. But we'll get into that. I think we need to give the main event some love right off the bat. Personally, I was really excited about Mingyang Zhang going into this fight. I just felt like he's just a unit. Like that man he looks like a superb athlete. And I did expect him to kind of just walk through Johnny Walker. And man, the low kicks, that honestly, just the kicking game in general on this card was the defining factor in a lot of these fights. But that I was kind of, I heard like Michael Bisping was like, oh, this one low kick. And I was like, no, I think that was a culmination of several low kicks. And you could see the damage on his leg as well. And he just had nothing for Walker once that calf broke down on him.
Yeah, I feel like it was a night of a lot of comebacks.
Yeah.
I'm like, Walker wasn't looking the best in the first, then was able to get the finish in the second. With that, I don't know how to describe it. I wanted his unique shot at the beginning.
Oh, his guard pull.
His double leg to bottom mount. I feel like on this card, honestly, I saw a lot of moments like that were just kind of like mind-blowing almost in how they happened. even obviously like the first fight we saw in Ezekiel choke, another one that's just kind of like out there situations where I don't know. I definitely saw with it's things that I would never think I saw before in my life, you know?
Right. No, yeah, it was the very bizarre entry into the fight. And to me, it told the story of how I thought the fight was going to go in general, just leading into this. Um, and Walker is kind of an enigma, to be honest. To me, I don't want to say I understand him opening the fight and trying to clinch and all that, but I also like he's been knocked out a lot in his career, and fighting a guy like Zhang, like I can't really blame him for wanting to nullify any chance of him getting knocked out immediately. Just yeah, very fakes the glove touch, takes a very bizarre shot, and somehow just ends up in the worst position. Not how I personally would want to start my first round.
Yeah, definitely not a strong start to the round. But like I said, it was definitely a night of comebacks. He was able to obviously keep chipping away with that leg kick and finish it off. I will say, once I'm gonna mess up everybody's name today, by the way. So once Zhang Mingyang was on the floor, there was a little bit of a couple of questionable strikes thrown, I will say. A couple hammer fists that seemed pretty blatant, like straight to the back of the head. But other than that, it was beautiful finish all around.
So, question for you: do you feel like Ming Yang was moving enough to justify like an action variance for back of the head shots, or you think it was a little too blatant to not be called?
I don't know. It's a very touchy spot because it's like it's like it wasn't his brain the reason that he went down. It was his leg was the reason he went down, you know? So his like mentally he was still probably there more, but could he have continued the fight and walked, you know? Like I don't know if he was still if there would have been a different outcome to the fight, but it's like those I don't there was like 3 or 4 that were pretty blatant hammer fist straight to the back of the head.
Have been called. No, that's fair, and that could have changed a lot. To be honest, I am curious. I'm interested to hear like statements because we've seen in the past too with like the peroneal nerve, where even if you're okay, like I don't know, you remember when Jimmy Crute fought Anthony Smith, still took him down like 3 times on one leg, but like you remember his ankle was literally just like a noodle because that nerve gets shut off even if it's not a toughness issue or you're still there mentally, like you just can't stand on your leg anymore. I wonder if it was like a peroneal nerve issue. It was just a combination of him because he did take some damage to the head once he went down. And I got to give the ref credit for he gave Zhang multiple chances to get back in the fight, you know, and he hit the mat like 3 separate times, I think. Was it 2, 3? And like was trying to wrestle up, couldn't, fell back, and there just wasn't really enough offense being mounted to justify him staying in the fight. And maybe resting after getting hit to the back of the head would have allowed him to get back into the fight. Maybe that nerve was shot and it was over regardless. We don't really know.
No, and like I've actually it was during sparring. I've had my perennial nerve. Like it was kicked a lot during one week and then the next week I remember going back to sparring and it just getting like touched like in touch sparring and I went down because it was so like it wasn't even painful, it just like gave out on me 100%, like completely, like I had no function of my leg anymore. So it's more than just like you said, like a toughness thing. It's like your body just physically gives up on you whenever like that nerve is shut down.
Yeah, no, I've never experienced that, and I'm good. I'm good. I don't think I need to. I will take your word for it. But that yeah, it sounds awful. But yeah, I mean, kudos to Johnny Walker. A Home of Fight made the funniest post I think I've ever seen. It was like Johnny Walker arrested by the CCP and not allowed to leave the country of China. Something like that to that effect. And I was like, that might be the funniest parody post I've ever seen. But I mean, he's back in the win column. He's in such a weird position. I feel like he's had just such an up and down career. Like when he first kind of came on the scene, everybody was just so high on Johnny Walker. He had flashy KOs and these just insane performances. And like,
I still think, I just think he's a fighter who's unreliable. You know, he's going to give you some flashy KOs, but he just fights in such an awkward, almost a little bit reckless kind of style that it's like, you're going to go one way or the other. It's like you're getting knocked out or you're getting the knockout. There really isn't going to be the in between. So I feel like we've seen a lot of that with the up and the down with Johnny Walker.
well, yeah, I agree. And it's like, I mean, obviously not like losing to the champ is nothing to scoff at. Like got knocked out by Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, but then also like a really old Volkan. Wow. Volkan Ozdemir's only 35. Am I the only one that thought he was like 43 years old?
No, I'm in the same boat.
I was like, oh, I guess he's not that old. He's still kind of technically that's like end of prime at 205. Like you have a little bit longer, I think, at 205 than you do in the lighter weight classes. But I mean, good wins too. Like knocked out Ryan Spann. I almost called him Brian. Ryan Spann knocked out Khalil Roundtree. Like just an interesting. But he's like 8-6 in the UFC overall. Like you said, he's
just unreliable. Yeah.
This was the first performance where he was just kind of here. You know, like he like just didn't look great and then like got it done, you know?
It's so funny because I feel like him versus his brother has such a safe fighting style. Yeah, just take people down, heel hook, quick, easy, where Walker just kind of Johnny kind of throws his body at his opponents and just hopes for the best.
In his defense, it did look like he was trying to be his brother at the beginning of the fight.
Yeah, no, 100%. That was actually my thought process too. I was like, maybe this was a game plan from his, like, just
from Walter.
Yeah, because I'm like, it looked very similar to Walter's every one of his fights.
Anyway, I feel like we should move through the rest of this card because, to be honest, the main event, while an interesting outcome, was by far not the best fight on the card. We will very briefly touch on this next fight. It wasn't great. The co-main event, Brian Ortega, Aljamain Sterling, not the most fun fight to watch. Obviously, a lot of weirdness in this fight week. Have we gotten a really straight answer on why they decided to make this a 5-round fight? I know Ortega wanted it to be a 5-rounder and was pretty adamant about that. I guess when this fight was supposed to be at 145, that probably would have made more sense for like a title eliminator. But just, I don't know. I felt like it was kind of a strange decision. Like Movsar and Aljo, which I feel like should have been a title eliminator, wasn't 5 rounds. Like that was a 3-round fight. And I would have much rather seen 2 more rounds of that fight than 2 more rounds of this fight. But this was just kind of strange all around. I feel like we talked about this off air. Aljo landed like a thumb knuckle right on Brian Ortega's eye, even split him open a little bit. Definitely a very clean punch. Was not an eye poke. Weirdness from Aljo where he gave Ortega the space to continue, even though Herb was like, it was a knuckle, keep fighting. And then Herb still allowed them to not continue fighting to review the tape, even though he saw very clearly it was a knuckle and he was very confident in his decision-making. So just kind of a weird moment in that was the 2nd round, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I know they said that the commentary made a comment about how they both share the same manager. So like, I don't know, there might be like more friendliness, I guess, behind the scenes. Cause it seemed like that in the fight. It seemed like too cordial, you know, like, especially with that eye poke he hit him with the knuckle. It's almost like Aljo was trying to explain it was the knuckle, but it was also trying to be like, no, it was my thumb. He needs the time. Like trying to argue that it was an eye poke when it's like it wasn't. By the law, like by the sports, it's not like, I don't know. It was very weird. He looked like it was a sparring match the whole time. So that's another thing where I'm like, maybe they are just like they I don't know, found it I guess harder to turn it up on each other, turn the pace. They didn't look like they were trying to hurt each other at any point, really. A little bit near the end of the 5th, but that was about it. Where I'm like, the whole fight was just kind of, I don't know, weird. And then obviously the pre-fight stuff with the weight, and literally I was on here last week talking trash. It was either last week or the week before about how I'm like bro science and weight cutting. And Laura Sanko's on the broadcast saying how I ran into Brian Ortega's team trying to buy alcohol for a salt bath at the convenience store. And I'm like, why at this high level is Brian Ortega cutting weight with bro science, with things that is actually dangerous for you? I'm like, there has to be some point that you take a better approach, especially after you had the same thing happen against Diego Lopez less than a year ago. Now again, it's like you got to take control of your weight cut, figure that out, change your nutritionist, figure something there, because you're obviously making the wrong choices and wasn't showing up at all fight night. I don't think we've seen Ortega show up for his last couple fights really. Yeah. And then Aljo just didn't really, was playing on the outside, just never engaging. It was really like a letdown of a fight I expected to be exciting.
No, I kind of am with you. I think if we'd gotten this fight 2-3 years ago, I think this would have been a really great fight. I really do. And I do think Ortega is just not, he's just a shell of what he was.
He's still 33 though. I'm like, still super young. I'm like, it just, he doesn't seem to have that like fight in him anymore. He doesn't have that fire, that want, that drive, where it's just like that aggression in him. It seems to be gone.
Does the UFC let him go to 55? Do they cut him? I do think he has the benefit of a better, well, maybe not now, but like maybe just like more fights, more big moments in the UFC. He's more popular than Brian Battle. He has those benefits, but man, just such a huge weight miss. They didn't lose the fight, which I think helps. They lost the Brian Battle fight off the card, which hurts the UFC more than you missing weight and still fighting. So there is at least that counting for Brian Ortega, but it's just, what do they do? What do you expect them to do with him at this point?
I don't really know, honestly. Like, as a fighter, as Brian Ortega, I feel like you need to ask yourself, like, what do I need to do? You know, like, is fighting still for me? Like, should I retire? Is this the right thing? Because if you're going to go out there and put performances like that, like, your heart's obviously not in it. Why are you even doing this anymore? I'm like, you have to figure out where you're at. But what the UFC does with him, I'm like, I said it with Brian Battle too, though. I'm like, it's hard to cut these guys when they are such, with Brian Battle, a great record. Ortega's on the downfall a little bit, but he is such a huge personality in the sport too, where it's like, it is hard to cut him, but obviously the UFC has no problem doing it right now. And Brian Battle was cut quick. So I'm like, we might see that happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Ortega got cut.
I mean, there's another factor too. Ortega's been on the roster a long time. That means he's likely a much higher paid fighter too. If you've got a guy that you have to pay a couple $100,000 to every time he fights, or just over $100,000, but you've got 5 guys that are fighting for 20 and 20, who'd you rather cut? Especially if the guy that you're paying a bigger paycheck to is not showing up, not doing his job, not making weight. I think that puts him in a really, really tough position.
No, 100%. I'm like, it definitely puts him in a tough position. But like I said, at this point, I'm like, I don't know. You're almost putting yourself in this position too. I'm like, you're making these choices to whatever. Because like for me, I'm like, a big issue is obviously his weight cut. Whatever is going on there, I'm like, you've made this choice again and again. It's obvious. Like, you need to figure something out.
No, I don't disagree. It's an unfortunate turn of events, because I feel like he was such a fan favorite for such a long time. But I honestly don't really know. I know I said we were just going to talk about this for a minute, and the next fight on the main card, I kind of feel the same way about. Obviously, there's not as many interesting talking points around this fight, but Pavlovich Costa, or Cortez Acosta, I knew I was going to mess that up.
No, honestly, every fight on the main card besides the first one, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce his name at all. Kiefer Crosby's opponent.
Oh my gosh. Nuraji? Is that how you say it? Nuraji?
No,
Let me see how it's spelled.
I'll say Nuraji.
First name, but Nuraji is how it
Nuraji.
looks.
Well, I'm like,
Kids?
yeah, they said that on the commentary too. Blew my mind. But Nuraji was the only person on the main card who I was like, okay, came out with an impressive performance. From the beginning, was looking for the finish, came out hard. A little bit of an incident with a knee to the face that was clearly grounded. But I don't think the fight would have been changed otherwise. I think it was going to be a clear first round TKO for him, regardless if that knee happened or not.
No, I 100% agree. And I loved him opening up in the I'll get to that in a second. I loved him opening up in the guard too. Like I feel like Crosby, I don't know. I don't know if it's just an issue of the level in the UFC, but I feel like he's tried to grapple quite a bit, and it is not like this is his third like time getting finished on the ground. I'm pretty sure. I know he's been submitted at least twice as well, and I just don't think he has the grappling skills to be able to fight like that and be so complacent to be on his back. And then good on Nuraji as well for not allowing Crosby to tie him up and nullify anything on the ground. Like he was just like, I don't care if you get up. So I'm just going to create the space to land these nasty elbows when he was in. And then when he did try to get up, obviously huge, blatantly illegal knee, which I think, was it Goddard was reffing? I'm pretty sure was reffing that fight.
Whoever it was, they took 2 points.
And I was going to say good on him because it was very blatantly an illegal blow. And I am kind of curious. I'm interested to see like any interviews that come out after the fact. If he was just like I've been competing in Asia for a long time, I forgot. Or if he just didn't give a shit or exactly what was, heat of the moment. I feel like if you are familiar with the rule set, heat of the moment isn't really
He's also 24, I think, 23, 24 years old. So I'm like, that's the only thing where I'd give him the heat of the moment as an excuse. Because I'm like, sometimes when you're young, you're just, I don't know, young and dumb and ready to just go out there just trying to fight and then not even thinking of anything. So I can see that as being a heat of the moment excuse. But the way that he was throwing those elbows when he was actually getting the TKO to finish, he was like bringing his whole body back and falling into that. It was like, I've never seen ground and pound with elbows done like that, where it's like something I was taking my notepad out, being like, oh, that's really cool. Like, that's something I want to utilize, just how he was putting his whole body into it. Those were nasty.
Well, and I think a big piece of that is he was not concerned with Crosby getting back to his feet because he clearly was very comfortable there as well. And I think it's almost like you see like an opposite. It's like the opposite of like the Charles Oliveira effect. I think something that makes Charles Oliveira's striking very dangerous is he's never worried about getting taken down. So he is very willing to commit heavily on his strikes because if you take me down, you have to deal with the dangerous thing that I am on the ground. While with Nuraji, he's like, all right, get up. Like, then you have to deal with me on the feet. Like, I think he just his tenacity with his striking allows him to have that just a lack of worry. If I create this much space, like if I've taken the time and the effort to get you down, I really want to keep you there. And he's like, no, I'm good either way. I'm going to do absolutely as much damage as I possibly can.
No, and I like, honestly, like that's the type of style that I feel like is the best to have. And like in some way, like you look at like Merab and Anthony Hernandez, they're the same thing, but in their own different ways of like, if they take you down, they don't care if you get back up. And I feel like those styles are so difficult to deal with because you just have such an ability to finish everywhere. Like they're not scared of where the fight goes. my coach always says, he's like, anytime you need something, you're fucked. So I'm like, anytime you need the takedown or you need it to get back to the feet or you need something to happen, that's when it's like, it's going to start going downhill for you. So these guys, they just don't need anything. They just go with the flow and just keep on fighting. Just look for the next best option.
Yeah, no, I love that. Especially if your opponent knows what you need, that makes it even scarier. I mean, I do think Jake, if Crosby had chosen not to continue, I imagine this would have ended by DQ. I do think we kind of go to this is a different kind of conversation where it's like, in your opinion, should the ref take that decision away from the fighter? I mean, we are grown adults that have consented to do this. You know, do you take that decision away where it's like, if there's a blatantly illegal blow, the fight's just over? Do we add that to the rule set, or do we kind of keep things as they are and maybe make penalties just a little bit more extreme, like an immediate 2-point deduction?
There was a fight, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, where the same thing happened, where there was a blatant knee to the face, and then the guy who got kneed in the face came back and won the fight. It still got the 2-point deduction, but still was able to, I want to say even finished it. But I'm like, what if that did happen for Kiefer Crosby? He was able to come back and find the TKO and still win the fight. It's like, it's his decision to determine whether he is capable to do that or not.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I think we're consenting adults here. Like, if he wants to continue fighting, he should be allowed to continue fighting. Obviously, it should be. I'm torn because we've also seen, I can't remember which fight. I think it was actually PFL. There was like a really weird illegal shot. I want to say it was back of the head from Jason Jackson. And his opponent, whose name I cannot remember, was like kind of out of it. And they were like really pushing him to make a decision like right away on whether or not he wanted to continue.
Oh, no, I know exactly what fight you're talking about now.
Weird. And he was clearly out of it, and it probably should have been an EQ.
It was the guy, he was the former Bellator champion who was getting punched in the back of the head.
And so it's like there are also issues like that where it's like, should the fighter really be up to make his own decision in a situation like this?
I think yes, but you should just be given time. Like you said, in the PFL situation, it was kind of like he was being pushed to, like, are you ready to go? Are you ready? You should get your 5 minutes at least. You have 5 minutes to sit there and decide, okay, I might be okay, or I need to take a deep breath for a second. Like, let me recover. Like, you should take your 5 minutes. But like you said, in the PFL situation, I remember he was being like pressured a little bit more.
Yeah, I didn't even. Did you hear anything about this? This is not can you guys talk about Raha Jackson later? I'm sorry, I did not mean to go. I Googled it.
I don't know much about it. I know that was pro wrestling and had knocked somebody out, and they were unconscious for a longer period of time. I'm not sure if they are awake at this point, or I don't know the details of it.
Yikes. It almost sounds like he was like actually trying to hurt him. I don't know. This was a Rampage Son almost killed a pro wrestler. That's very concerning. I did not know about this until right this second. So we will not get into it now. Maybe the Tuesday show we can talk about it, because I've literally just seen it for the first time. But that's nuts. Sorry. Coming back to UFC, in my ADD brain saw the comment and I was like, Google. I get. I'm kind of on your side with just that continuation. The continuation of the fight being up to the fighters, but man, Kiefer Crosby's 0-4 in the UFC. He's been finished every time, I'm pretty sure. I'll double check that. Yep. It's just, I think it's time. I think it's time. I think if we're looking at this main card, I think Brian Ortega is at risk of losing his job. I think Kiefer Crosby is at risk of losing his job. Is definitely not at risk of losing his job is Sumaderji. That was really fun to watch. It was like a kicking masterclass. I feel like the kicks, like Kevin Borjas, I think has great boxing. And I think this was a really good example of how a long southpaw that is a good kicker and uses his length well can make a fight really, really difficult for a good, crisp boxer like Borjas. Borjas was never close enough. I feel like maybe a couple times he was actually able to cover the distance, but you just saw him trying to lunge in so much. And anytime he would really try to commit to stepping in, Sumaderji just used that backside so well. Backside kick, big long cross to meet him in the middle. And it was really fun to watch. Lots of spin kicks. I enjoyed that. I love the flyweights, but I really liked that fight in particular.
Oh yeah, you saw Borjas just it completely nullified his boxing to the point where his I guess cage control was his best way to win the fight. You saw him shooting a lot, just trying to push Sumaderji against the cage a lot. So then, because he didn't really have any other options. He was just kind of getting frustrated from the outside or being able to hold him up there. And it was, like I said, completely nullifying his boxing.
Yeah. SG, I'm not sure. If it was short notice for him, it was probably also short notice for the other guy because he wasn't booked to fight somebody else.
Yeah, well, Kiefer Crosby, it says on here that he was booked to fight Song Kanan. So I'm assuming it was short notice for his opponent.
Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, I was going to say the other guy was not booked beforehand. So, yeah, Kenan Song, you're right. Yeah, so it wasn't short notice for Kiefer. It was short notice for the other guy. But, yeah, no, geez, that's even worse. Yeah, it's tough break. But I don't think, especially in a weight class like that's competitive, I think when you're 0-4, you gotta go. But really, really impressed with Sumaderji. It was a fun fight. I mean, he had a couple good shots too, deep on the legs. Borjas did well. It wasn't it was definitely a 30-27, but it wasn't a complete shutout. Borjas was in the fight. And I think he'll go on to win a lot of fights in the UFC as well.
Oh no, I agree with that for sure. I think that it's just stylistically, this was probably the worst matchup for Borjas. Like I said, it took away what his best weapon was of the boxing, and it kind of forced him to play a game that's not his greatest, just because he didn't really have any other options.
If you watch his Contender Series fight, actually against one of my friends, he looks really good. His boxing looked nasty on the Contender Series. And he's one of those guys, he's 1-3 in the UFC. His job could be in danger, but I also he lost this fight. I think Sumaderji's kind of an loss, but his other two losses are Joshua Van and Alessandro Costa. Those are not, and then he beat Ronaldo Rodriguez, who I also think is very good.
Yeah, who's also a huge, I guess, hype train at the moment, a lot of people are behind him. So Borjas was very much the dog going into that fight.
No, I agree. So it's yes, 1-3 in the UFC. I would like to think he will get another couple fights before, he would have to lose another one or two before they cut him. But I don't know. Maybe they have a lot of impressive flyweights signed for this year's Contender Series. This is a really dangerous time to lose a fight. While Contender Series is going on, depending on how many matchups they have booked in your weight class, if you go out and you don't look good or you lose one or two or three in a row, this is a dangerous time to be losing fights. So we'll see. We'll see if his job is safe. I think it should be, personally. I think he's a fun fighter in a weight class that's not as it's just not as populated. We'll come back to Gage Young and give him his flowers, because that was a great fight. But this fight, oh my God, I want to stay on the flyweights right now. I am such a big fan of Lonair Kavanaugh. I think he's really talented, really well-rounded, really exciting. And I thought he looked really good. And once again, the kicks, the takedown defense, the choke attempts, I just thought he looked fantastic until Charles Johnson does what Charles Johnson does, which is knock guys out when he's losing fights.
Like I said, I think this was very much the night of comebacks where Charles Johnson didn't have the greatest first round, But even like the end of the second round, you saw him like picking up the pace a little bit, finding his rhythm a little bit more. That also just might have to do with like him being a vet more, where Lohner isn't exactly. Once you get a little bit later into the fight, and this is exactly what I think happened with him, is like you're young, you might lose your focus a little bit. He threw a punch, lost his focus a little bit, dropped both of his hands straight down. And it's like you can't take a second to lose your focus. Another thing that my coach always says, I'm like, he's like, a fight is a 15-minute focus contest. It's who can stay focused for longer. It's not like, it's not who's tougher, who's stronger. It's who can stay in the moment and make the right decision for those full 15 minutes. And Lohner just had that little glimpse of not being there, and Charles Johnson was really just able to capitalize on it.
And man, Charles Johnson is he's such a gamer. And you have to be so, like, you're 100% right. You can't lose focus like that. But it's also, especially with a guy like Charles Johnson, I think his like speed and athleticism, like he almost reminds me of like a Bobby Green, where there's this awkwardness to where his punches come from, but there's also a lot of speed and a lot of power. And so it's you have to be so careful with a guy like that. And Johnson's another one of these guys where he's kind of been up and down, like Johnny Walker. He's had, I think he's like 7-5 in the UFC, but he's like 1-5 in his last 6. So like he's on a tear.
Can we just talk about the situation that they were talking about on the commentary that happened with him, though? They said, because I'm like, if I was supposed to fight on this card, if I fought on this card, Charles Johnson, I think he's coming out of Fusion, so we would have probably been on the same flight over there. They said he was 5 hours into his flight over the ocean, and there was a medical emergency on the plane, and they had to turn back.
What?
Like, that is literally my worst nightmare. To be 5 hours into the flight, have to turn back and now do another, 10, 12 hours on the flight. I cannot think of anything else that would absolutely drive my anxiety through the roof, especially having to deal with it fight week. I'm like, just for him to be able to go out there and perform after going through all of that, I'm like, props to you.
Good for Charles Johnson. I literally, I don't even care what it would cost. I'm going to go buy my own first class ticket where I can sleep in a lying flat bed. I'm not adding 10 hours to my travel to an already, I'm assuming like it's got to be at least 15 to 20 hours of flying.
Well, he had to fly out from LA too. So flying from Orlando to LA, then LA to Shanghai. And it was like halfway to Shanghai that they had to do a little turnaround, come back. I would absolutely die. And like, I literally when I was thinking about getting this fight for Shanghai, I'm like, that's the only thing where I was already starting to have like nightmares, anxiety about the flight over there. I was just so nervous about it. And I'm like, if that happened to me, I'd be done.
All right, I'm just going home, guys.
Yeah, it's not worth it anymore.
Worth it. Oh, that would be terrible. But yeah, no, I mean, he did this to Joshua Van. He did this to another young prospect. This dude doesn't say no to anybody. Ramazan Tamirov was willing to take that fight. He fought Subhaderji, who we know is a very difficult guy to fight. Azat Maxim beat that undefeated kid that everybody was so high on. Jake Hadley was a huge prospect at the time. Like, I just feel like he's never shied away. Debuted against Mikhailov, right? Which was honestly a good fight. But he's never shied away from any opportunity. And a guy like that has a place in the UFC for a long time. He really is a company man.
Someone who just fought their way back to the UFC, Kyle Dawkins, put on a great performance last night. Just a quick knockout, less than 30 seconds. And like, just as Michael Bisping was talking shit, being like, Dawkins isn't the most explosive person. He doesn't really have power. Yeah, clean hook. Yeah, absolutely beautiful. I'm happy for it. I like to see when people they make their way back and you see their improvements. You see that, okay, maybe he does deserve to be here now.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy. There's honestly like this card was a lot of like second chance fighters. I feel like you have Kyle Dawkins, you have Austin Hubbard, you had Rong Zhu. Like all kind of on their last legs. But yeah, I just
for some reason, I think whenever the UFC has a pretty inconvenient card, that's typically what happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like last time the Mexico City card, I remember thinking the same thing. Just a card that would be terrible to be on, just like location wise, having to travel, being in elevation, whatever it is. I feel like a lot of those inconvenient cards, you get a lot of the fighters that are kind of on their last leg on those cards.
It's like, you can't say no to us.
Exactly.
Like Super Crosby probably couldn't say no to the UFC at 0-3 to going to China. Like that just probably wasn't an option for him, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, and it's just probably like the most inconvenient. Like that was another thing with like me possibly having to fight there. I'm like, okay, I'll have to go out there 2 weeks early at least, probably just to make sure I can get acclimated. And then you have to worry about your diet out there, like how you can get food, where you're getting food, just the language barrier, everything about it. It's like it is just to fight in another country is just a huge hassle, especially if it's across the world. So I'm like, for all these guys, I'm just like, I know it is a lot to take those fights.
Right. I'm also very curious, and I wonder if anybody has seen anything about this. I remember when the Olympics were in China, there were a bunch of issues where the athletes that were not from China were getting like really bad food and stuff, or not enough food. And there was like, they made it very difficult on them. Obviously the Olympics, like it's a bigger, there's more athletes. It's harder to keep track of. It's not like as private of an organization as the UFC is. So I don't know if that's like something that could have happened to the fighters, but we've also heard like fighters going to Paris, getting blood tested right after they get off the scale and they aren't allowed to rehydrate yet, you know. Depending on the country you're fighting in, there can be some funny business. So I'm always a little bit curious when going to these countries that take their athletes winning very, very, very seriously, if anything like that goes down. But I haven't seen anything, so I'm not spreading rumors where there aren't any. I'm just curious. But Rongzhu has been doing well. He's back in now. Hubbard, we were kind of talking about guys that are on their last legs that I don't like. I think Weston Wilson is probably, I think it's 1-3 now, or 1-4. Either 1-3, 1-4. How many has Austin Hubbard lost since he got back in?
With Weston Wilson, Laura Sanko literally called it right before it happened. She's like, he needs to keep that right hand glued to his cheek. And then instantly just got dropped with that shot. And it was a vicious knockout. You could tell, like, you could hear the ref sitting there for a second after being like, the fight's over. Like, he was out.
It was like the same shot like 3 times, right? Like,
just so fast too, though, with the Yiza, am I saying that? Yeah. Yiza style. I think I said I'm going to be terrible today. But with his style, his karate style, those punches were so fast. Just the way he darts in. It's almost like MVP kind of does the same thing. Just with that little, like, because they're so, they have such good movement on their feet. They're able to dart in with that right hand and just, get so much power off it. Another one, Wonder Boy does it as well, but obviously like all the same kind of style.
Yeah, no, he really is a dangerous guy. And I think he'll showcase that against some higher level opponents as well. I do. I don't think we're going to see Weston Wilson back in a lot of rough names to pronounce at 3 a.m. West Coast time. Agreed, Jimmy Jam. Agreed. But man, this guy has never even seen a second round in the UFC. Weston Wilson. Knocked out first round. I grounded
not in the good way either.
Jean Silva, which not two bad losses by any means. And then has an armbar finish against the where's that guy from? Indonesia. I knew it was somewhere in Asia, but the Indonesian fighter like has that quick armbar. So he does have like, I guess we could say he's not boring. Like he's either going to go out and get finished or finish somebody, but that was just such a quick finish. And there wasn't really, once he got hit, it was just like, he was just there to be hit again and there to be hit again, you know?
Yeah, it wasn't a strong performance, I will say. But the fight right before that, I don't think any fight has got me more hyped in a long time. I'm like, I've just haven't seen a fight with so little defense and just 1000% offense from both guys. And it was an amazing fight to watch. The last 30 seconds, I think there was 35 elbows thrown in 30 seconds, just standing in the pocket. Like literally not a single punch from Long Zhao.
I honestly didn't even know if they were really landing all that much, to be honest, but they were definitely throwing.
Just literally elbow after elbow. I'm like, not a single punch in the middle. It was one of the most hilarious exchanges I've ever watched. Just an all-around exciting fight. Like, these boys were there to scrap.
No, 100%. And the toughness too. I saw something, I'm pretty sure it's Zhao. I want to say it was Zhao, has literally never fought out like a non-Asian fighter. I just thought that was kind of like an interesting tidbit. And that might have something to do with his fighting style, because I don't know how often you guys tune in for Muay Thai cards or some of the like Little Gloves Muay Thai that One Championship puts on, but like some of these fighters in Asia give 0% care for their own well-being, and they are just there to perform and entertain the crowd. So
I feel like, typically speaking, too, a lot of Asian fighters, like typically speaking, aren't the best grapplers. You know, it's not like heavy grappling base. So you probably are a little bit more comfortable to just sit there and stand in the pocket and bang. Because I'm like, if you're doing that to me, I'm taking you down real quick. If you're going to stand in front of me and just hit me like that, I'm not going to deal with that. But I'm like, like you said, he's only fought Asian fighters in the past, can probably get pretty comfortable just getting into that style.
No, I agree. And like, yeah, he was just there. Like you said, they were just there to scrap. And to be honest, I feel like the guys that have come out of South Korea, yes, definitely tend to be more strikers. You have Zombie, you have, was he Little Zombie? Love that kid. Wow. Like, his striking is just, wow, unbelievable. But they tend to be, I was going to say, they tend to be a little more technical, but I guess Korean Zombie didn't necessarily make his career off of being technical. He just made it off of just being a dog.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was being tough more than anything else for him, where it's just, he was someone who just didn't go away.
Yeah, and neither did you on, not you, but
me?
the fighter, you, on Saturday morning. But yeah, that's training for Muay Thai fighters, is getting punched in the jaw. Yeah, some chins on these guys, some absolute monster chins on these guys. Yeah, it was a great fight. I have zero complaints. That first fight of the night was kind of wild too. Nurgajai is a guy where I'm not quite sure he's quite UFC level, and he really did kind of get just cut through like butter. And then you saw like kind of a weird submission sequence, where it was like a Kimura to an Ezekiel choke, and you could hear Laura Senko on the broadcast. She's like, Alexei Olenek is so proud right now.
Yeah, she's like, Alexei Olenek's watching this somewhere, just proud. I'm like, that's all I could think of too. I'm like, obviously he has the only 2 Ezekiel submission wins, but just from a closed guard being able to finish an Ezekiel choke, like, I don't know. Maybe this guy has something special. I think Alexei does legitimately have something special with that Ezekiel choke. Maybe this guy has the same feel, but if you're getting Ezekiel choked, it's never a good look regardless.
I feel like Alexei can do what he does because of the length of his arms, but he can also do it because it's heavyweight. And it's like, it's a lot harder to like buck and move and create space when you're moving 265 pounds. You know?
My only argument with that is he's finished it from bottom mount. So I'm like, I think like
long arms.
Yeah. I feel like with like what I always go for my rear naked choke without hooks in, and a lot of people can't necessarily, I guess, figure that out. But I just have such a feel for that choke. I know when I have it, I know when I don't have it. Like the second I lock in, I'm like, okay, I've got it. I think Alexei's kind of in the same position with his Ezekiel. He knows like once he has it and he's locked in, he's like, all right, there's no chance they're escaping. So I'm like, I think he just has such a good sensitivity and good feel for that choke that it is just like, he can't pull bottom mount and use it and be effective and still finish the fight.
That's fair. I do think that's true. I think part of it is just his build and the way he's built. He is so good at that, and also obviously the years of practicing it. But yeah, I do think because the same thing kind of happened to that guy whose name I'm going to butcher too. The Russian names. I'm usually on top of it. I can get the Russian names, but when we go to Asia, I struggle. I think he's Kazakhstani. Nurgazai. I think he was struggled with the same kind of thing with was it Ribeiro that he fought first? I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure it was Brenson Ribeiro. Whose name I apparently cannot spell. There we go. Brenson Ribeiro.
Second round submission.
Kimura. It was the second round Kimura. I think he struggled with similar things in that fight. So it's he's probably not losing his job just yet at 0-2.
Maybe that like
a lot of guys.
I was gonna say you'll see people get cut just for being 0-2. So I'm like I don't think that I don't know, it's unjust necessarily.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And yeah, I wouldn't be completely shocked. That's 205 though, right?
Yeah, and like we saw a 7-1 heavyweight get cut 2 weeks ago.
That's true. That was wild. Like they never cut heavyweights. They didn't cut. Who was it? Chase Sherman. They like refused to cut Chase Sherman. They're just like, nah, it's fine. Record can be whatever it was, but he would show up. Like if they ever needed a heavyweight replacement, it was always Chase Sherman.
Well, I feel like two things that like can keep your job a lot longer is being available or being exciting. So if you can have a losing record, but if you're going to be available for them or if you're going to put on an exciting fight every time you walk out there, you have a higher chance of keeping your job a little bit longer with those losses.
No, that's true. That's true. Yeah, they did cut honestly, I think I like Rosenstruck at Dirty Boxing.
I actually also saw that Brian Battle's going to be fighting there.
Was so fast. Just that I had to laugh at the whole situation. It was like the day after Brian Battle got cut, like it was announced that Brian Battle was cut from the UFC. He's like, DBX is like, all right, he's fighting like next week. Like it was just, I had to laugh. Like they took zero time. And honestly, maybe that'll be good for him. No, like we've seen, but Brian Battle was good in the UFC. That's why it's such a shame. Like he was doing well.
But also, like, who's to say that he isn't using this as an opportunity or this and maybe a couple more fights as opportunities to prove, hey, I can make weight.
Yeah.
And I don't think that these two weight misses are something to completely like blacklist him where they'll never sign him again. I think that he just needs to prove to them that like, I'm getting my shit together. I can be on weight. I can do my job right. Like, give me the opportunity again. And I think he'll deserve it. He just has to prove to them that he's ready for that.
Well, and then there's the question of were there other determining factors for him getting cut? Like we saw a very talented, very popular, undefeated kid get cut, and the UFC is like, no, we'll absolutely never sign him again because he's just, they said Makhayev's too difficult to work with. Mm-hmm. I don't know what that means, but we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. You know, maybe they weren't having a good time working with Brian Battle. I don't know. So it's you never know. You never know what goes on behind closed doors. To like when you see some guys get released, some guys don't.
Right, even if it comes down to like money negotiations, sometimes things like that. If somebody's asking for way too much or things like they can be difficult in that manner too. Like I know Mokaev had a little bit of situations where he was like fighting with people in hotels and things like that kind of made him hard to deal with as well. Where I'm like, it can be more than just like how they act publicly. Cause I feel like Brian Battle isn't someone you would see in that kind of position.
Yeah, no, I've interviewed him before and he was lovely. Like he's always been very kind, but we've also interviewed Muhammad Mokaev and he was lovely. And he was lovely when he trained at ATT to those people, but I don't know how those meetings went behind closed doors, you know? So it's just, you never know. You never know how people are to do business with. They might be really nice people. And honestly, you talked about money. That may have played into Big E's getting released. He's a great guy, and I think he was probably pretty easy to work with because he seemed to say yes to a lot of fights. However, he'd been in the UFC a long time. And I think he was like 8-6. So maybe it might have been mutual. Who knows? Maybe he was like, if I can't get any more money, like I'll go. And the UFC's like, yeah, we're not going to pay you any more money. Or they didn't renew his contract, because they didn't feel like he was worth the dollar amount he was making at that point in time. But he can go make that money at DBX and probably do really well for a promotion like DBX that is not even a year old and needs a name that comes out and knocks people out like he did on their last show. So,
and like you said, they have so many guys coming in with a contender too. It's like, if you are trying to negotiate big money that they don't think you're worth, why not just pay one of these contender guys like
12 and 12.
10? Yeah.
Exactly. So there's so much that goes into it that I think people don't always think about. But we didn't even talk about PFL. We don't have time. I'm sorry. We'll save it for the Tuesday show. I might be gone the next 2 Tuesdays. I'm still figuring out what my schedule is. So if I'm not here, G and Dave will be here covering all the bases. But thank you guys for joining us. Do you have anything else to add, Gillian?
No, I think that's about it.
I feel like last thing we'll do is let's just give this card a letter grade. It was certainly no UFC Chicago, but it wasn't the worst card we've had either. What's your A to F?
I'll go C+. The prelims really held it up for me. I loved the prelims. And then once we got to the main card, it was losing me a little bit. But the prelims, I felt like were top notch.
I agree. I would almost go C- just because I think while the prelims were killer, I think you need more than that to carry a card. And I was pretty disappointed in the co-main event, to be honest. But it's all good. We made it through. It was still a great card. I will definitely be going back to rewatch several of those prelim fights today. So sober C.
High B-.
Thank you, Jimmy Jam. I think that nobody could possibly say it better than that. We love you guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you Tuesday. Bye.